This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. We got a new major lawsuit in Fulton County, Georgia that could impact the outcome of the election. And I'm not talking about the phony Willis prosecution of Donald Trump, which is on ice through appeal. We got a new suit been brought by the Democratic Party of Georgia and the National Democratic Party against the state election board in Georgia, which just recently, in the last several months, has been taken over by MAGA Trumpers. 3-2, they now control the state election board. Donald Trump loved that result so much, he called them in a shout out to them while he was in Georgia at one of his recent rallies, pit bulls for victory. Think about that. These are not independent, neutral election board in Donald Trump's eyes, and therefore they're not. The 3-2 supermajority right-wing MAGA have passed a new series of rules to throw a monkey wrench into democracy, to cast doubt and sow doubt about the outcome of the election in Georgia at the very time where the validity of outcomes needs to be reinforced. It's so bad that even the Republican Secretary of State, who's responsible for elections in Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, had this to say about the new laws that were passed that are now being challenged by this lawsuit that I'm going to go over in the next moment. Brad Raffensperger, a Republican, said, quote, activists seeking to impose last-minute changes in election procedures outside of the legislative process undermine voter confidence and burden election workers. He continued, misguided attempts by the state election board will delay election results and undermine chain of custody safeguards. Georgia voters reject this 11th hour chaos, and so should the unelected members of the state election board. They're unelected. They were appointed, and they're all MAGA, and that's the way it is. So what's this lawsuit all about? It's a verified petition for declaratory judgment or declaratory relief in Fulton County, Georgia. And what it says is the following, that the new laws, the new burdens, the new hurdles that this Trump-dominated board has passed, which on their face look to be okay, really is just a hunting license for these board members and local election officials aligned with Donald Trump to delay the certification of the election and to call into question the validity of the vote and to disenfranchise people as a result. What they say is they just want to have the ability to make reasonable inquiry and to look at all documents related to vote count and certification. By state law, every state has to set a deadline for the certification of all the election results, right? You vote in your precinct. There's a tally in your precinct. It's recorded on a memory card, or maybe it's done by a hand count. Then that's delivered through the various chain of custody protocols to your county election official. They are then ultimately certified, and by the Monday following the election at 5 p.m. in Georgia, all the tabulations are done and the certification happens. Now, some people might say, well, what if there's fraud? It's the same if there was fraud before these pro-Trump rules and policies were passed. You go to the court, right? It's called a contest. You file an election contest alleging there was fraud. Generally, that's done by the losing candidate. So there's already a court process that oversees irregularities in voting, in vote counting, and in fraud. Happens all the time. I've been involved in a number of them in Florida, representing municipalities or counties or elected officials. And so that is the procedure. What the state board wants to do, which is what we're seeing as the strategy of MAGA around the country, is to place on these election boards MAGA pro-Trump people to try to throw a monkey wrench and sand in the gears of democracy and vote counting. And even other Republicans find it offensive. The rules have changed just 3 months before the election in Georgia, and that's just not right either. Let me read to you from the actual petition that was just filed, not yet assigned to a judge, but will be. Not sure it's going to be Judge McAfee, the judge in the criminal case with Donald Trump, because he's really a criminal judge. We'll find out who that judge is. But here's the introduction on page 1 of this 38-page complaint. 3 months before the November 5 general election, Georgia's State Election Board has attempted to upend the required process for certifying election results. Through rulemaking, the board has attempted to turn the straightforward and mandatory act of certification confirmation of the accurate tabulation of the votes cast into a broad license for individual board members to hunt, there's the hunting license, for purported election irregularities of any kind, potentially delaying certification and displacing long-standing and court-supervised processes for addressing fraud. That's the problem. And that's what they're trying to do state by state in all the battleground states. Have you heard about NAD+? It's one of the most important molecules in the human body to age well. NAD+ helps promote cellular energy, maintain healthy DNA, detect nutrients efficiently, supports detoxification, and supports your cellular health. Simply put, keeping your NAD+ levels high is vital to helping the body feel youthful. But did you know NAD+ levels plummet with age? So by age 50, most people's NAD+ levels are only half of what they were at age 20. Luckily, science has discovered a way to boost your NAD+ levels up to 50%, and it's called Qualia NAD+, a groundbreaking supplement from Qualia. The reason so many health experts use Qualia themselves, and the reason I'm proud to have them sponsor this podcast, is you're simply not going to find more carefully researched, life-changing nutritional formulas, especially for aging well. Qualia NAD Plus is a supplement that includes ingredients called NAD Plus precursors that your body can convert into NAD Plus to boost your levels up to 50%. Qualia NAD Plus is a clinically tested and naturopathic doctor formulated. Look, I want to feel 30 when I'm 58. That's why I'm staying at the cutting edge of aging research. And boosting my NAD Plus levels with Qualia NAD Plus is taking a huge part of how well I age and putting it in my control. After just a month on Qualia NAD Plus, I'm feeling support and vitality return that I haven't felt in years. To boost your NAD Plus levels up to 50%, go to qualialife.com/truth for up to 50% off and use code TRUTH at checkout for an additional 15% off. That's qualialife.com/truth for an extra 15% off your purchase. Thanks, Qualia, for sponsoring today's episode. This is exactly a version, a smaller version of what they try to do at the national level on Jan 6th to try to create new rules at the last minute, pressure Mike Pence, Donald Trump, and his minions did, to do things he could not do in his ceremonial role as the president of the Senate. He had to certify that which had been already tabulated from below by state, or he would have disenfranchised hundreds of millions of people. Now they're doing it at a micro level, state by state, really important. And it's really important that the Democrats have figured it out and are filing their suit as quickly as they did. They're not standing for this. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think that's one of the reasons people come to Legal AF and hot takes like this one. That's what happened. What happens next? What happens next is there's going to be they've asked for a fast track for this case. They're asking for a declaration that the certification process is mandatory and that everybody knows that. This again would reinforce the validity of elections. They want a declaration that the new laws do not grant election superintendents discretion to delay certification or not to certify at all. They want to declare a declaration from the court that absent a judicial order, election superintendents must certify the results of the election no later than the 5 p.m. November 12th, 2024. Now, right now, it's not set up as an emergency application, although I think that could easily be converted. But the other side, they're suing the state board. The state board's going to be usually represented by the attorney general of the state. They may bring an outside counsel to do it. And then the judge who's ever assigned to it, I think, is going to hold a relatively quick hearing about this, set a briefing schedule on this issue, and then have a mini trial. I think there's going to have to be evidence presented. There's going to have to be testimony. Could be a week-long trial. We don't have a lot of time here. This is, we're 70 days or less to the election. And this has to be resolved very, very quickly, certainly before November the 5th. So I think we're going to see a lot of activity in Fulton County, Georgia again. No surprise here. Right back to where we started, so to speak, about elections and their integrity, probably starting right after Labor Day. I think it'll be an October event. I don't know about an October surprise, but it'll be an October event and very, very important to democracy. Very, very important that people believe that which everyone who's a professional in the industry of election integrity believes, that our elections are the safest and most fair and fraud-free in terms of outcome determinative fraud in the world. And that you don't have to dip your finger into purple ink to show that you voted, like in other third world or second world countries. And we don't need election monitors to come in, from democracy groups internationally. I mean, the joke was Putin talked about sending in his own monitors when it looked like we had so much chaos in 2020. I mean, that was just Putin having a little joke at our expense. But we don't need that in this country. Between our electronic voting, optical reader voting, electronic voting of all kinds, paper ballot voting, paper ballot receipt retention, chain of custody rules, election workers on the ground, precinct rules, courts to oversee fraud, you should have confidence and security that your vote will be counted. Now, is there fraud in an election? Yes, in every election in every country. But ours is so de minimis, 0.02, 0.003% in most years. It's never outcome determinative because the 3 or 4 ballots that are cast in a state by a dead person, by somebody voting for their dead mother-in-law, by somebody voting in the wrong precinct, by somebody voting who shouldn't have voted, who's a felon, or maybe somebody who doesn't have proper status in this country, it doesn't change the outcome of the election. Only in places where there's like one vote. And if there's one vote and this election for a certain office is hanging on a knife's edge, right? It goes to the courts. And the courts are charged with evaluating the outcome of the election and to determine whether there's fraud or not. Have confidence in that as well. The reason I have to reinforce that is that our opponents on the Republican side want to sow doubt and disbelief about voting. They want to win the vote. But if they lose, and they know they're going to lose, like in the case of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, they want to already start the drumbeat of people believing that the outcome of the election is not the outcome of the election. And we, as Americans and as patriots, have to do everything we can, and as lawyers, to make sure that people understand that their vote will be counted, and we will not stand for state election boards controlled by MAGA and Trump, who are obviously not independent or neutral, who are not agnostic, who are passing rules to create hurdles and to cast a doubt and shadow, right, and put shade on the process, are not going to be stood. We're not going to stand for that. And we're going to file lawsuits everywhere we can. So I'm going to continue to follow it here on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF. If you like our show, join us every Wednesday and Saturday every Wednesday and Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for a live recording. You can participate by live chat with the host. On Wednesdays, I do it with Karen Friedman Agnifilo. On Saturdays with Ben Meiselas. Then on hot takes like this about every hour at the intersection of law and politics. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.